We don't even know where we are right now.
Are we doing a show? What's happening?
We just spent the weekend watching 56 hours of basketball straight.
My head's still doing this with the basketball.
I mean, I stepped outside for the first time today in days.
The sun hurts.
Yeah. What is that?
It's time for the Brew and Shavers Sports Podcast.
Hey there, welcome back, sports fans. How are your brackets?
That good.
Can we skip this part of the show?
I think it's reasonable. Let's just move on and act. We didn't even do a bracket challenge. You're imagining things.
Somewhere there's a perfect bracket in the metaverse, but it's not with any of the folks that signed up for our bracket challenge, including Darren and I.
That's exactly right.
Before we get to our brackets, which we will get to because the tournament's still going on and it's
right.
already produced the typical drama and upsets and unpredictability that we love so much about the NCAA tournament in March.
Fantastic moments.
We've got a couple of headlines regarding coaches, and the first one is John Calipari from Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Very successful coach, signed a lifetime contract when he first went to Kentucky. He is coming under quite a bit of pressure and scrutiny, and there are even calls in Lexington and around the state for his removal. And here's some reasons why. They recently lost in the first round to Oakland, mm-hmm. out of Rochester, Michigan, where they got lit up in that game and didn't seem to really make the necessary adjustments. But to put this in perspective, Kentucky has won a grand total of one NCAA tournament game since 2019. Mm-hmm. What year is it, Darren?
That would be 2024.
Kentucky has won a grand total of one SEC tournament game since 2019.
Wow.
In the past four tournaments, starting with this year, 2024, they were eliminated in the round of 64. That's the first round. 2023, they were eliminated in the round of 32. That's the second round.
Second round.
In 2022, they were eliminated in the round of 64. That's the first round. Oof. And in 2021, they just missed the tournament.
Oof.
So it's gotten so bad, Darren, that the Lexington Herald Leader on the front page today, they misspelled Calipari's name. They spelled it with a K instead of a C. Now, did someone just totally blow that, or is that intentional? I wonder in this day and age if they just don't have copy editors like they used to.
And see, I feel like it has to be some kind of shots fired, but I don't know what it would be. What could that mean? Maybe I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but I don't know. I don't know how changing it to a K. Either they don't have copy editors, like you said, because I mean, it's pretty impressive that they still have something in print. I mean, in today's world, so that's surprising and impressive at the same time. But maybe one of the costs that gets cut is you don't have the layers that it used to go through. Because I just don't. Either that or somebody had a really funny thing in their own mind that we change this to a K. People understand that it means. And I don't think anybody does. I don't get it.
My gut tells me it's not very exciting, but I think it was a simple mistake. And sometimes the removal of copy editors, these papers are outsourced to other places. Mm-hmm. And so someone just made a mistake. But what we cannot ignore is the angst and the displeasure that Kentucky fans have right now.
Absolutely. My first thought was, as a Vanderbilt fan, is Calipari needs to cancel his weekly phone calls he's apparently been having with Kevin Stallings, because that sounds like his record the last 5 years he was at Vanderbilt. You cannot, in Big Blue Nation, it would be one thing to go to the tournament because there would still be some angst. People would still be a little upset because it's Kentucky and it's what Kentucky fans are used to. If you lost in the second round, then had a couple of years, bracketing that where you only made it to the Sweet 16, there would still be some angst. There still would be people going, well, we expect national championships, but to never not make it to the Sweet 16 and in one of those 5 years miss the tournament completely, whew, that's rough. I mean, that's causing absolute panic in the bluegrass state.
Panic is an appropriate word in a
Yeah.
state that is so fanatical about their basketball as Kentucky is. And for some, they feel like Calipari is just saying the same things over and over and over
Right.
again, and they're not seeing any changes.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely the game has changed from when Calipari first took the job.
Tremendously.
We were getting used to one and done players. Now we
Mm-hmm.
have the NIL and the players are staying longer with teams. And Darren, I don't think anyone described the situation better than former Villanova coach Jay Wright after the game. And I think we have a clip, but I think Coach Wright hits it right on the head.
Number two, the era of taking these young freshmen and trying to play against older players is over. Like I think he did a phenomenal job with these guys all year, getting them to be as successful as they were. You can see they're playing against grown men. The guys on Kentucky will be far better pros than any of these guys on Oakland or any of these guys in the tournament. But they're not as good college basketball players. At this point in their career, they're not as disciplined yet as the guys from Oakland. And it's not Cal's fault. It's they're 18 years old, and they're in this era where everyone's telling them how great they are. Just show up in college and you're going to win. It doesn't happen that way. And the more the guys stay in college because of NIL, it's going to be tougher for young teams like this to be successful.
I think he's exactly right. Kentucky's going to send a lot of guys to the NBA. I don't know if anyone's sending more guys to the NBA currently than Kentucky is.
Right.
But Jay Wright zeroes in on the problem. You're dealing with 18, 19-year-old kids. And if that's your average age on your roster and you're going up against teams where the average age is 23 or 24, that's a big gap there. And the Oakland team they lost to, none of those guys are going to the NBA.
Right. I would agree with that. And I think a thing that it's interesting when we talk about this stretch that they've been on, and you look at you consider Jay Wright's comments, and this is all happening not only as NIL has developed and players are now staying longer, but you also have COVID that came along, and you have sixth-year seniors and seventh-year seniors, depending on medical red shirts. And so you have instances and circumstances where on any given night, especially in a tournament situation like this, where you have 24, like you said, and even sometimes 25-year-old men playing against 18 and 19-year-old kids. That's going to make a dramatic difference in speed of the game, regardless of talent. Obviously, talent has its place and can take over a game and win a game. But in speed of the game, when it comes to size, being able to function within the paint, being able to move things, that's going to make a dramatic difference when you've got that level of gap. Just from a physical perspective, it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, it will. And Kentucky should have the biggest NIL collective out there.
Absolutely.
That state, if you don't know, it's hard to put into words what basketball means in that state. You would have coal miners, farmers. You'd have the person working the cashier at the grocery store. Those are people who would give their hard-earned money for Kentucky to have a winning program. So the degree of displeasure, and athletic director Mitch Barnhart is in a tough position because, there's a $33 million buyout, but Calipari is still a good coach.
Right.
We could argue that he's not adapting. Maybe he's a little stubborn, but he's still a good coach. And will he adapt? Can he do enough? But I think also a question is, who do you get if you let him go?
Exactly. I mean, what are you going to do? To me, the only play is you have to go get someone that's equally as established that maybe is just doing it a little bit differently, because you can't be Kentucky, let John Calipari go or mutually part ways, as the press conference or press release would say, and then go grab a Sun Belt guy or an AAC guy that's on his way. And you're talking about, I mean, Mitch, he would go from doing what all the fans want to being the guy that all the fans want. Like, we want your head. That would happen as soon as that decision was made. That would not go well at all. So it really is an impossible decision or place that he's kind of stuck in. It is beyond rock and a hard place.
It is, and we'll wait and see. There's rumors. I think Matt Jones, who covers Kentucky athletics, put out that we should know something definitively, maybe by Tuesday, the day this show comes out. So we'll stay tuned to that and see what news comes out of Lexington.
Absolutely, it's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
Another coach that's currently in the news is LSU women's basketball coach Kim Mulkey.
Yes,
Mulkey came out in a press conference recently stating that the Washington Post, a writer for the Washington Post, was working on a hit piece on her and said that she was prepared to sue the Washington Post if this story comes out. We don't know what's in the story. We don't know what the story is about. But I think this goes back to some things that happened at Baylor. I would be surprised if there's much in there about her 2-3 years at LSU.
Right.
I think this goes back to some things she said and some things she did at Baylor that were not illegal and that were not unethical, and they did not violate NCAA regulations in any way. But I think it ruffled some feathers, and this has been brewing for a while. Unfortunately, Darren, what we're seeing in the mainstream media is they're circling the wagons to protect. In fact, one person said today that this story, when it comes out by the Washington Post, will be unassailable ethically and legally. I'm not sure such a story exists.
Exactly.
Have you no? I mean, we're talking about the legal profession here.
Exactly. I don't. To me, the things that the press is going to come out and say in defense of other people in the press, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, surely they have to know it's not going to have this stance of strength that they think it's going to do. It's. I mean, they're following the playbook. It's what we expect. Someone that's getting out. Someone non-press is getting out ahead of a story about them and taking a stand, regardless of what's in the piece. Like you said, we don't know what's in the piece. We have no idea. But she decided, just like she said, not many people are in a position to fight this, but I am. And like her, love her, dislike her, right, wrong, or indifferent, she's spot on. That is a 1,000% accurate sentence. She is in a position to fight it. And it's going to be kind of a weird kind of watch how it all unfolds. But regardless of what comes out in the piece, let me say this: I like the fact that she decided to, rather than sit back and say, well, maybe I don't, and I should, and maybe you're going to have your say. I'm going to have my say. My turn first. Here I come. I'm not offended by that. I'm actually a fan of it. I like it.
Agreed. You alluded to this, Darren. Coach Mulkey is a lightning rod.
Yep, absolutely.
There's very little middle ground. Either you love her or you hate her. And if you're not an LSU women's basketball fan, you probably hate her. If you're not from Louisiana, you probably hate her.
Absolutely.
And you look at where the hate is coming from and what parts of the country that it's coming from, it becomes very clear. What becomes clear to me, at least from my vantage point, Darren, is an attempt to bring down a very successful coach. And if there's nothing alleged in this article, whenever it comes out, that is illegal, against NCAA rules, then I hope she sues the snot out of the Washington Post.
I agree completely.
So we will continue to watch that. I mean, I was going to move on, Darren, and then I remembered something else I saw today. Someone making fun of the clothes she wears. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
If you
don't
don't like the woman, that's your prerogative. We live in a country.
Yeah.
You're entitled to your opinions. You don't have to like her. But my goodness, can you just cool it?
Yeah, and the thing about it is, all those things are going to be done because you're in the spotlight, and it's going to happen. But there is a point at which even the people that are making the jokes and taking the shots, there has to be a moment where they take a step back and say, okay, this seems pointed. Like it's gone from the occasional, like, Tony Romo is the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. Well, he's not making the playoff. It's gone beyond that to feeling aggressive, and this story kind of feels like the culmination of that, truthfully.
Yeah. A lot that we will be waiting to hear and see as this story continues to develop.
Absolutely.
But let's move on to talk about our brackets and our bracket challenge.
Wait a second. We have one more coach to talk about.
What's that?
There might be a new head coach at a school. Who would that be?
Are you talking about Mark Byington?
Oh, that might be the name.
It's right here in my notes, Darren. And you were not going to let me forget it.
I was trying to help. See, look, I'm trying.
Does that say Michigan? It's kind of fuzzy.
Oh, look, everything just went dark. What?
Let's see. Who did you say went to Michigan earlier? Not Dusty May, but it was
Brian May.
Brian May. Yeah. The lead guitarist from Queen has gotten into coaching.
Now you talk about a headline. If I would have been right on that one, now that's a headline.
Every game, you're going to hear another one bites the dust, and we will rock you, guarantee it.
Well, but the one downside would be the head coaches would have to take all the adjustments at halftime because he has to be the halftime entertainment. He has to come back out, do a few solos, right? I mean, if you've got that kind of talent in the room, right?
Isn't he an astrophysicist?
I think that's right. And just in case he didn't have enough going. Yeah.
I wonder what kind of plays he could draw up.
It might be one of those things when he finishes and turns around, the players are just like, what?
Next semester, every player will be enrolled in the physics class.
And that's just to understand our inbound plays.
Let's go back and talk about your new coach at Vanderbilt, Mark Byington from James Madison, coming off a 32-4 season. Mm-hmm. Highly successful. Darren, how are you feeling about this hire?
I am choosing to ignore the little nagging things that are bugging me a little bit about the hire, and focusing on 32-4, the most successful 4-year stretch that James Madison has had in 30 years of their basketball program, or in the last 30 years of their basketball program. He has an exciting brand of ball. There are some things to talk about positionless basketball, and some of that stuff kind of makes me a little leery. That being said, I am not a basketball coach. I have not had the 4 most successful years in the last 30 of James Madison basketball. So maybe he knows something I don't, and I'm choosing to roll with that. So I am very excited because from the surface, there were reports that prior to the move to Michigan, that Louisville and Vanderbilt were both pretty heavily courting Dusty May to try to get him on board. It is not a Dusty May level hire, and I don't mean that offensively in any way, and I don't think it would be taken that way, but I think it's a solid, when you look at the last 9 years of the Vanderbilt basketball program, where it has been, its absence from the tournament, its absence at times in the conference. I mean, forget the tournament. Its absence at times in the conference. I think this is a quality hire that has some potential, has a high ceiling. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to see what he's able to do with the program.
Certainly, Vanderbilt has a tradition of having some really good basketball teams, successful basketball programs. So
Absolutely.
hopefully, Mark Byington can bring
Yes.
Vandy back to that level again.
Hopefully so. It
I-
would sure be nice.
You seem cautiously optimistic, Darren.
That's exactly right. I am choosing to be excited and just let go those little things go, but still, I'm looking forward to hearing the press conference and seeing how recruiting goes. Getting guys back. What do we look like in the transfer portal? I think that will ease some of the cautiousness of my optimism as we see those things develop. So,
a lot of moving parts, but certainly seems to be a step in the right direction.
absolutely, can't refute that at all. I think it's a positive hire.
Now, you ready to talk about some brackets?
Let's talk about some other people's brackets.
I'm all about that.
Before that,
We have the
let's
top
talk
20.
about baseball.
We don't even know where we are right now.
Are we doing a show? What's happening?
We just spent the weekend watching 56 hours of basketball straight.
My head's still doing this with the basketball.
I mean, I stepped outside for the first time today in days.
The sun hurts.
Yeah, what is that? So let's talk about the SEC teams in the current top 25 baseball rankings. Arkansas is holding on to that number 1 position. We have a shakeup at the top. Some of the teams fell. A&M climbed to 4, Tennessee at 5, Florida at 6, Vandy fell to 7, LSU fell to 8, Alabama at 16, South Carolina at 18, Mississippi State 21, Kentucky 24, and Oklahoma at 25. So 11 teams, I think I counted that correctly, in the top 25, and the season is still young. I know we're focused on basketball right now, but right now the SEC is dominating.
It's some exciting conference ball when you have 11 teams in the top 25. That's exciting stuff.
Now, can we talk about other people's brackets?
I do believe we can. Hey, look at that.
So we want to give a shout out to some of those who are experiencing a level of success that Darren and I are not currently in our bracketology. And these are folks that you signed up to become a part of our bracket challenge. And looking at the names here, PGC Boziers picks 1. Bigfoot Search Crew, Lenardi Spirit Animals picks 1. Zipster 38 picks 1. I don't have to say picks 1. Why is it picks 1 at the end of everyone?
I don't know.
ESPN fan 357654 5707. I feel like I just read a social security number.
Or a cryptic code of some kind.
Followed by ESPN fan 349-507-2039-8675-309. No, that's not far. It's just made up.
I swear, exactly what I was sitting here thinking was next year I'm going to make mine ESPN fan 8675309. That's what I want.
But congratulations to those 7 or 6. Is it 6?
Yep.
6 for early success. We're to the Sweet 16. We'll see. A lot can change, but so far these 6 are leading the pack in our bracket challenge.
And we want to say that we were super excited to have the people in the challenge that we had. This was a big year with quite a few people. Super, super excited. Thank you to everyone. Even if your bracket looks more like ours does, and you're not on this list of 6 people, thank you to everyone that was a part of it. Super excited to have the amount of people that we did this year.
It's about how you finish, not how you start.
That's right.
I had a perfect bracket after the first 4, and it went downhill from there.
Well, but you never know how they'll shake out, right?
Speaking of that, shout out to Grambling State, not only making the tournament for the first time, but collecting their first ever tournament win. Congratulations to Grambling.
And I would just like to point out that I was right there, nailed it. Said historically, those. Oh wait, never mind. Never mind. Moving on.
For a while, Darren, if you travel down I-20 East, you probably don't want to stop at the Grambling exit.
I just keep going. head on to is Ruston after or before?
Ruston's after.
After, so I just head on to Ruston. That's what.
Let's take a break and check out this week in sports history.
Christian Laettner's The Shot is one of the most iconic moments in NCAA history. It occurred during the 1992 East Regional Final, a game that many critics rate among the greatest in college basketball history. The game was between Duke and Kentucky, with Duke trailing 103-102 with just 2.1 seconds remaining in overtime. The play began with Grant Hill throwing a pass 3/4 of the length of the court to Laettner. Laettner leapt high to grab the inch-perfect pass, took a power dribble, spun, and launched a shot as he faded back. As the buzzer sounded, the ball swished through the net, giving Duke a 104-103 win. The announcer, Vern Lindquist's emphatic yes echoed throughout the stadium, marking the moment as one of the most dramatic in sports history. This improbable buzzer beater sent the Blue Devils to the Final Four and solidified Laettner's status as college hoops legend. In 2004, Sports Illustrated deemed it the greatest college basketball game of all time. Even today, the shot remains a centerpiece of college basketball lore.
Oh, thank you.
We are in the Sweet 16, and if your bracket's in good shape, congratulations. We just gave a shout out to those whose brackets are doing well. If your team's still in it, congratulations as well. Mm-hmm. Let's start with our Sweet 16 teams as we're going to make our picks for the Elite Eight. Sweet 16 and Elite Eight tonight. In the East region, number 1 seeded UConn, nobody's come close to beating them.
No.
They're steamrolling everybody. They go up against a Final Four team from last year, San Diego State. Did the Aztecs have a shot here, Darren?
You know, I think they may make it closer and make it look better and make it a little bit more of an exciting game than did Northwestern or Stetson. But I don't think so. I think UConn is bringing some strength to this tournament, just like they did last year. I think this is a UConn win. Who do you see coming out on top on this one?
I've not seen anybody come close to knocking off UConn, and I think San Diego State can make a game out of it, but UConn is loaded. I think we're just going to have to see a game where their shots don't fall, where they kind of deconstruct. And until that happens, I'm not sure anybody has much of a chance of beating them.
Yep.
So I got UConn.
All right.
In the second game in the East region, the third seeded Fighting Illini and the second seeded Iowa State Cyclones are facing off. Really an intriguing matchup. Both very good basketball teams. Mm-hmm. Oh, boy. What do you think?
This is a tough one.
It is.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, just from a streak perspective, how they've looked, how they were coming into the tournament, I think Iowa State is on a white-hot streak, and I'm just going to roll with that. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a close game. Could be one of those games like we saw, I think it was Saturday night. We had a couple of overtime and or double overtime games. I think it could end up being one of those games, but I think Iowa State pulls it out.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Iowa State as well. Let's move over to the West region where the number 1 seeded North Carolina Tar Heels are facing the 4th seeded Alabama Crimson Tide. These are all good matchups.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it kind of goes against every fiber of my being. But I think I'm going to choose Alabama. I'm picking Alabama to beat North Carolina.
Well, I said that Alabama was too dependent on the three, a team with a strong defense that really could kind of, sit down on them and really kind of slow things down. But would take care of them, and that was the reason that St. Mary's was going. And obviously, I was wrong, so I think Alabama's going to win this game. I'm just going to continue on the what I thought was wrong streak. So I think, again, great matchup. Should be a good, fun game to watch. But there's just something in me that just doesn't feel like North Carolina can carry into the Elite Eight. And so I think Alabama will. So I'm going Alabama.
One of the surprising teams in the tournament, the 6th-seeded Clemson Tigers have advanced to the Sweet 16, where they will face the 2nd-seeded Arizona Wildcats. Does Clemson's magic continue, Darren, or does Arizona send them home?
I think Arizona sends them home. I like this Arizona team. I'm enjoying what Clemson is doing. They are on a streak. Could prove us wrong, but I don't think so. I think Arizona wins. What about you?
Darren, we are agreeing way too much. I've got the Wildcats as well.
We are straight down the board on this one, haven't we? We've agreed on every single. Oh, I don't think it's going to get any better on the other side. I think we're going to agree.
Let's head over to the South Regional, where the number 1 seeded Houston Cougars are facing off against the 4th seeded Duke Blue Devils. Who you like, Darren?
You know, there's a part of me that it scares me going back to that Alabama pick to pick against both Alabama or both Duke and North Carolina in the same bracket. But if I were going to change anything, it would be the Alabama pick. It would not be this Houston pick. I like this team. I think Houston wins this game.
Boy, I like this team as well. And what resilience to beat Texas A&M in overtime with 4 starters that fouled out of the game. So Houston goes deep. I like the job Kelvin Sampson's doing. I'm gonna stay with the Cougars.
Yep, agree completely.
And the other matchup in the South Regional, the 11th seeded and surprising NC State Wolfpack face off against 2nd seeded Marquette. What do you think?
There's got to be a surprise somewhere for whatever reason. This feels like the game. I'm calling NC State. I think it's such a silly pick that if Marquette wins, people go, well, they beat an 11. That's on you. But if it turns out, pretty good pick. so I there's just something about this game that feels like the way it sets up. I'm going with NC State.
NC State has been on quite a run.
Absolutely.
At some point, the bubble is going to burst, and I think it burst here against this Marquette team. So I'm going to take the opposite side from you on this one, Darren.
We found one we disagree on.
Cue the drama.
Dun, dun, dun.
Heading over to the Midwest region, number 1 seeded Purdue, which has looked very impressive this year.
Yeah.
Against 5th seeded Gonzaga, which really just took it to Kansas.
Yes, they did.
Wow. Who you calling in this one?
I'm still riding with Gonzaga. I can't. Purdue will have to prove me wrong. I didn't buy it last year, even though they've hung around longer this year. Still not buying what they're selling. I'm going with the Zags. The Purdue will have to prove me wrong. How about you? Who you got in this game?
I wonder if Gonzaga has that magic this year that we see a team get in the tournament. Mm-hmm. The way that they just put away Kansas, I think I'm going to go with them. I think I'm going to say they're going to upset number 1 seeded Purdue here in the Midwest.
Yeah, because the thing is, you talk about how they put away Kansas. I mean, we're not talking about they beat Kansas. I mean, we're talking about a 20-point win in the tournament over Kansas.
Yeah.
That says something. Yeah, I agree completely.
Oh, yeah. So the second game in the Midwest is the 3rd seeded Creighton. Were they the Blue Jays?
Yes.
Against the 2nd seeded Tennessee Volunteers, Brandon's favorite team.
That's right.
He's not with us tonight, but he'll be back next week. Hopefully he'll be in a good mood next week when he comes back. Hopefully Tennessee's still alive.
Depends on how this game goes, yeah.
I was very impressed with Tennessee's win over Texas. That was a very hard-fought game. And they
very defensive.
They encountered some challenges, and they met those challenges, pulled out a win. I'm going to stick with the Volunteers.
That's what's written on my paper. All right, Tennessee. Let's move on.
Moving on quickly. Well, let's go into our picks for
to get to the Final Four, right?
Yeah. We're
Yep.
picking the Elite 8 games. Who's going to the Final Four?
Yep.
So going back up to the East, we both had UConn advancing to face Iowa State with a trip to the Final Four on the line. Darren, who are you going with?
I'm going to continue to ride the lightning of the Iowa State hot streak. That almost proved to be too much. Iowa State pulls the upset over UConn.
Woo!
Everybody's got to lose at some point, right? So I'm going Iowa State.
I should have had the song by Kenny Rogers, The Gambler, queued up on my phone. I had no idea you were picking that.
You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, right?
I like that pick, Darren. And there's a part of me that wants to join you in that pick. I'm not convinced. I'm going to stick with UConn.
I understand completely.
But an incredible pick, and if you prove to be right, I will sing your praises next week.
I'll be on my own hot streak. That's right.
Going down to the West, we both picked Alabama to meet Arizona with a trip to the Final Four on the line. Who do you like in this one?
I'm rolling with Arizona. There's again something about this team I like. Alabama still gives me questions. In our original picks last week, I didn't even have Alabama making it this far, and I think this was where their run comes to an end. I have Arizona. How about you?
I think the toughness and physicality of Alabama will help them squeak out a win here. This is killing me to keep picking them, but I'm going to go with Alabama.
That's a good pick, man. What's that, a 4 over a 2?
Mm-hmm. Let's move on down to the South. We both had Houston advancing to face. You had to face NC State. I had to face Marquette. And for me, Darren, I don't care who they're facing. I'm going to pick Houston and go into the Final Four.
Completely on board.
Right.
I'm a fan of NC State and what they're doing, but it's Houston. So
in the Midwest region, we both had Gonzaga advancing to face Tennessee. Ooh, and this is I'm going to have to pause and listen to your pick here.
Oh, well, let me give you some very clear Tennessee. All right, I'm moving on. I tell you, honestly, prior to the Texas game, I think I would have debated this longer because I'm really buying Gonzaga and what they're selling. I really think, and you look at how they did against Kansas, like we've talked about, there's something about this team. But to me, one of the questions that we've even talked about with Brandon in previous episodes is, what does Tennessee do? This Tennessee team this year do when it gets physical, when it gets defensive, when it gets ugly, when it's just not going right, and you've just got to settle in and grind it out. Even if it is, what did that final score end up being, like 69, 68 or 62, 58? Even in that kind of a game, can this team, do they have the physical toughness and the moxie to pull that off? And they answered that question. To me, that gives them the upper hand in this game. Well, number one, in the game in Creighton, and that just creates momentum that even with what Gonzaga is doing this year, I think it's a Tennessee win. I think they're going to kind of get that monkey off their back and make it to the Final Four.
Darren, I want to give you props for using the word moxie.
Thank you.
Well done, my friend.
It's a
well
fun
done.
word.
And you picked the perfect occasion to insert that word.
Well, thank you. What are you thinking? Who's got your attention on this one?
I like the Volunteers. Maybe it's a sentimental thing on my part. I'd like to see Coach Barnes make it to the Final Four. The man is so gracious. Did you hear him after the Texas game? That's the university that fired him, and he just heaped praise upon Texas and the program. And I thought, this is graciousness exemplified, and it's hard to root against him, even if it's not the colors. He's coaching the colors that we like.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with the Volunteers.
He makes it, I watch him and watch YouTube videos of his post-game press conferences and stuff. And it's like, you are not supposed to be able to make me like you. You're the Tennessee head coach. I'm supposed to be disgusted and turn you off. That's not right.
This is how I feel about Coach Saban, okay?
Exactly. Understand completely.
Well, that does it for our Elite 8 picks, Sweet 16 and Elite 8 picks.
So just to set it, our final four, who do you have?
I have UConn
and
Alabama. Arizona. No, I got Alabama beating Arizona.
You took Alabama. Yeah, you took
UConn, Alabama, Houston, and Tennessee.
And I have Iowa State, Arizona, Houston, Tennessee. Either way, that's a pretty good Final Four. However that shakes out.
I think so. So. This is going to be it's going to be fun to watch.
Yep, very much so.
Speaking of watching, thank you all for continuing to watch the show. There's more basketball to come, and then we'll go right into baseball. We got Darren's favorite football league, not named the NFL, kicking off the end of March.
It's just in a couple of days. That's right.
So a lot going on.
Yep.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button. Give us feedback, comments. Let us know. We appreciate you listening, watching, and participating.
Absolutely.
New episodes drop every Tuesday in the wee hours of the morning, but you don't have to get up early to hear them. They'll be posted, and you can listen and watch them whenever you want to. So until next Tuesday, y'all take care.
Have a great week.
Thank you for making the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast your go-to sports show. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our show if you haven't already. Your feedback is so important. Let us know what you think about this week's show. Send an email to brewandshavers@gmail.com or a text to our text line 318-390-3599. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again for listening to the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast. See you next week.